Hi, I'm Iliana Limon-Romero here with Alicia DelGallo, ready to talk Orlando City, Orlando City B, Orlando Pride, all things Orlando soccer. So it's been another busy week for the Orlando soccer scene. Alicia, if you want to catch us up a little bit, let's talk first Orlando City, coming off their game last week, another tie.
Right.
What were the takeaways from that game? What were your thoughts on how the Lions performed?
Basically, it was a tough game. They knew they were going to have a tough game against the Red Bulls. They're brewing kind of a little bit of a rivalry there, especially that Aurelian Collin was traded just days before and then starts against the team, and you could see he was very motivated in that game. So, takeaway number one, holy yellow cards. Most for dissent and arguing with the ref and unsportsmanlike conduct, which is something that they had been better at this year than they were last year, and they've been working on a lot. So that wasn't something that anyone was happy about seeing. And another tie, another game where they held on at the end, put on defensive players, which was kind of necessary going down to 10 men at the end.
All right, so after that we had OCB, another tie, but this one interesting. It's more of a lab for players to see how the MLS team is recovering, to see how they're doing. So takeaways from OCB's performance.
Yeah, so OCB's tie was a little. They were a little more positive about coming away with that tie because they went down 2-0. I think it was in like the 13th minute or really early on. And also in that game, not only did they pull out the tie, but they had playing time for 5 of Orlando City's players. And I forgot to turn that on. 5 of Orlando City's players, and Luke Bowden, who's been coming back from a hamstring injury, was able to get playing time as well. So that game as a whole was seen as a positive. Although OCB fans may not like the tie, the goal of that team is to develop players, and they got a lot of minutes for a lot of Orlando City players and still pulled out a tie.
Okay, so something people had to universally be happy about, Orlando Pride.
Yes, Orlando Pride. How could you not be happy? Okay, they shut out Hope Solo in the Seattle rain on Sunday. Man, it's been a longer weekend than
you anticipated, right?
Yeah, so 2-0 win. Everyone's happy. What else? I mean, is there much to say? They seem to be coming together. Definitely, obviously motivated by playing at home because their only 2 wins have come in their only 2 home games this year. So another positive step towards where this team should be.
Very good. Yeah, quite the performance by several players. Sarah Hagan getting that momentous goal.
Right.
Alex Morgan being someone who creates opportunities as much as scoring.
It was good to see that.
Good for them. Leanne Sanderson coming off the bench and again being a super sub, just as you projected. And then we also had Ashlyn Harris delivering more monumental saves. How many weeks in a row do you think she can get NWSL Save of the Week? Because we're 2.
She told me, she said after the game, like, she does not want to get NWSL Save of the Week every week. She was like, every week should not be a highlight reel. This is not, like, if my team's doing their job, like, I shouldn't be saving that many balls, which she was happy with their performance in this last game because that save was really her first touch of the game. So, but she got banged up. You talked to her today. How's she doing?
Talked with Coach Tom Sermani. She's doing a little sore, but doing quite well. Seems to be on good pace, on good track. So they were very happy. He was very pleased that she stayed in the game, and really pleased with the way the team rallied around her. You saw that she didn't take the goalkeeper kick right after getting up off the ground, and then also just the way the team really pushed to try to protect her. So
also, did you see when they took it down to the other end and scored? She was sitting down on the pitch, like just hanging out,
recovering. Yeah, and she told you after the match that she felt okay, but that's obviously toughness talking. She's a little sore today, but they have utmost confidence that she'll be ready to go for Saturday. So
she came in the press conference a little hobbly, no shoes on, no socks on, just walked up and sat down.
I mean,
so
officially she trained, but she did not train the same amount of time as the rest of the goalkeepers, and that's fine. I mean, I think they feel good about their fitness, and they're certainly fortunate on that team. They've got a wealth of talent. That roster's coming together, and certainly the single greatest thing they've got going for them right now is they've had no players out due to injury.
Oh, I know.
Huge.
Great.
All right, Twitter questions. That's why we're here. We're taking questions from readers. So
interesting questions.
We've got, a whole lot of thoughts, whole lot of questions. And of course, anytime you're in the transfer window week, you're going to get a whole bunch. So this one is from Eric Sintron, Alaire Center. During the Red Bulls game, do you think Heath should have changed out Laren for the Beast around the 70th minute? So should they have subbed on?
I mean, it's always hard to get into a coach's head and know exactly what's going on with the players on the bench and with the players on the field. The easy answer, if you were watching that game, would be yes, because it was obvious that Kyle Laren was taking a beating during that game. He was really physical. The players were really physical with him, trying to shut him down. 2 guys on him a lot of the time, and he was tired. He was tired again. So the easy answer would be yes. But I talked to Adrian Heath a little bit at different points about choices and subbing and things like that, and he said it's always harder of a decision, more hard of a decision than people think. Because it's not just subbing one guy in for another. It could do harm to the team and the shape, depending on what's going on with certain players. So, I mean, easy answer, yes, but it's not always that easy of a decision for the coach.
Right. I think there's a luxury there of having, so many players, and you worry about injuries. You do worry about how altering things can be, and there's a lot of confidence in Kyle Laren's ability to work through. He's looked completely beat up. He has collapsed on the field after late game goals from cramping, but he powers through and he gives them an edge. He's their most experienced goal scorer, so you can understand, maybe sticking with that plan. I can see that.
Well, also, I mean, people have been a little bit critical too, because Kyle hasn't scored in the past few games, but there's things that teams, away coaches have told me that they game plan around Kyle. They send their players, when Kyle has the ball near goal, everyone's focused on Kyle. And you can kind of see that if you watch the goal back, Molino's goal. Kyle had 2 guys on him, and he was able to stick his foot through them and get it to Molino. But those 2 guys, the 2 defenders and the goalkeeper, were all focused on Kyle. So when the ball went through and Molino was coming, then the goalkeeper tried to scramble out, and he was too late. So those are the types of things that Kyle also brings by being on the field, that it might be difficult to decide if you want to take that off the field.
Absolutely. All right, next question. Kyle Meardo, Meards Beards. Orlando City planned to make a trade for a veteran center back before tomorrow's deadline. Yeah, we've got a lot of interest in the trade deadline. We also had a couple of others. Orlando City, SC Brazil also asked this question, trade deadline. So, any thoughts on the trade deadline?
I have been told that there will be no more movement for Orlando City in this trade window.
All right. We always kind of put an asterisk right there because,
They
great deals come by, people come through, you're going to want
changes,
to.
But as of today and yesterday, the plan was no more movement.
All right. Next question. Carlos Quijada at Dark Sema. What do you guys think of Heath's comments?
That's not the right one, huh?
What do you all think of Heath's comments on subs? Maybe he's been too conservative early on. Subs could have made wins of ties. So this is not just specifically Laren and Bautista, but this is all subs overall. Thoughts on the sub situation?
I mean, it's clear that he's conservative with putting subs on early on. I don't know. What I think of his comments is that he's said that in his experience, and that's how he feels. And he feels like it would have been more disruptive at this point to put certain people on earlier or at different times or change shape. You hear him say it again and again after every game when people call for these subs earlier. He says the same thing. He thinks it would have disrupted the shape and it wasn't the right time or the right personnel. And I don't know, I don't want to give what do I think of his comments? I think that's his experience talking, and that's how he feels, and I think it's genuine.
All right, so you're going to get, going into this season, Orlando City coach had faced criticism within the last year, held on to his job, and he said very clearly this year, I am coaching for my job. I believe that I have to win. I have to lead us to the playoffs. We have to be consistent, be competitive, be among the top teams in this league. And I think he operates and wanted the opportunity to coach with all of his experience, 35 years of coaching. This is his mentality and his approach. And if the leadership of Orlando City believes in this approach, it leads them to the playoffs, then that's the way that it's going to go. And if they're not as content with it, then I think he'd rather go with playing the way he wants to play his style. You don't like his style, then you can make a change. That's your decision. But this is his approach. This is what has led them to championships at the USL level. This is what has led him to success in the past. And this is what he believes is the best use of his current assets on the team. I think he sees it as a long season and maybe more willing to gamble later in the year than early in the year. He wants to accumulate points, and he has certain milestones by which they want a certain number of points. And so far, they have not been knocked off that pace. So there's not as much pressure to make what could be perceived as a dangerous decision. So I can see that. We'll see. I think we're going to have a couple more questions sort of related to this, so we'll move on to the next one. Another one from Carlos Quijada at Dark Sema. What about Camara? This is Kai Camara from the Columbus Crew. I think the team is solid, but hearing he might get moved, could he end up here? So there's been, I guess earlier today, Sports Illustrated reported that the Columbus Crew were shopping Kai Camara around right ahead of the trade deadline. There's been some disruption there in Columbus. Infighting within the team that has spilled out very publicly that has led to Kai being suspended for the upcoming game. There was a dispute between him and a teammate over who got the chance to take a penalty kick, and he was sitting on a potential hat trick, so it was arguments spilled out on the field. Some very unusual things happened in other soccer markets all weekend. There was lots of strange things, including a player getting cleated in the back in a USL game.
Which he was suspended for and he was
kicked out of the league, essentially. So, there's a whole lot of other things going on. But in Kai's case, look, he was an MVP candidate last year, goal scorer, tremendous athlete, forward. Would he ever fit in Orlando City's picture?
I mean, ever? Anybody could fit it. Ever. Obviously, he's great talent. To have, but at this moment, I don't see him fitting in. They just signed Julio Baptista. They have Kyle, and despite all the transfer rumors, I mean, if they were to trade Kyle in the summer trade window, they would get half of his transfer fee because he's been with the team for 2 years and he was a Generation Adidas player. So they would get half of the money that they got from him, which would be millions, and the league would get the other half. If they hold on to Kyle and he plays in just one game next year, they get 2/3 of the transfer fee. So it makes a lot of sense to hold on to him for now. And definitely, like I said, I don't think if there were to be any trade last minute under the wire in this window, it would be for a defender. They're not going to make any huge movements at the forward position right now, so I don't see that happening.
All right, so next question. Adam Haas, at Adam KH79. Has he said anything about why Nocerino continues to start? It hasn't gone well so far. So
people are not happy with Nocerino.
Understood, but it does take some time to develop into that role.
And I do have to say, I saw a comment on social media about someone trying to take a jab at Nocerino, but saying, wow, he must be one heck of a practice player. And honestly, in practice, I only get to see like either the first 15 minutes or the last 15 minutes. And granted, if it's the first 15, I really only see stretching. But in practice, he looks really good. He looks one of the best on the team in training. So I think maybe that's what it is. I think maybe it's just wanting to get him continue to get comfortable in games and in matches, because he does look really threatening in training. And I talked to Adrian before last week's game about why he chose to go with Nocerino over Vinter specifically. And I think, that could be the same could be said about Carlos Rivas, maybe. And he said he just felt like he needed to bolster the defensive midfield against Sasha on the Red Bulls question, and that's why he chose to put Nocerino in for that specific game. Previous games, various reasons, but this past game, that was the reason he gave.
Yeah, I think you look at it by the matchups. I think that's the same thing the Pride coach is doing. They're altering who's in their lineups and who's there based on what they're going to need. And I think the other part of it is I know patience isn't popular but you're probably going to have to wait till after the All-Star break until we're really going to see what kind of run of play you might be able to get from someone like Nocerino. It just takes time. And you're fortunate when people can step in and it's seamless, but it just takes a little bit of time to adapt. And I think he's shown talent, and he certainly has it. It just hasn't always translated in the way that people want on game day, but it's getting closer.
Yeah, and matches very well.
All right, next question, Chris, at Orlando County SC. How's Redding holding up considering he was unjustly, in my humble opinion, placed on the bench like a sack of potatoes?
Is it humble opinion or honest opinion?
Humble, honest, either way.
If anyone knows the answer to that, let me know.
Yeah, feel free to tweet
I've always wondered. Redding's holding up fine. He's 19 years old. He wasn't even expecting to start the season. Yeah, it's going to be a blow. But it's just going to make him work harder to get that starting position back. And he played a lot. He was working really hard. Originally, it was that they wanted him to take a break, and they wanted some veteran experience on the back line for the game in New England. And Mateos did well in New England, so they stuck with it. But I think it's just going to motivate Redding even more. And I don't think it's something... he's not a veteran who's been starting for years, has a bunch of accolades to his name, so it's not something that's going to be a huge blow to his ego.
These, again, are probably the kind of problems you want to have. You want to have the depth that makes you push people. We have another depth position player question up next. Orlando City, SC Brazil, at Blog Orlando City. Any indication that Luke Bowden could start playing left back for Breck? We certainly could use some security on our left back.
I don't see any indication in that so far, especially because Luke is coming back from a hamstring injury. I know people have been disappointed with Breck's performance of late, but it's something that Adrian acknowledged and said he's not completely happy with the way he's been, said Breck is not completely happy with the way he's been performing, but it's not, Breck is such a dynamic player and someone that they rely on heavily, so I don't see, as of right now, in the state of the team right now, I don't see him getting pulled or moved.
Certainly not this week. It's Kansas City. It's a hostile environment. You've got a dynamic, goal scorer in Dom Dwyer. You've got situations where I don't see somebody coming back off of an injury in front of a tough crowd. It's one of the best road environments Orlando City is going to play in this season. I don't see that kind of change, but it'll be interesting to see what we do see out of that final lineup. All right, next up, Donald B. Money Jr.
I know him.
Has Coach Heath considered that fans' frustration over ties come from high expectations being set and not met in the table?
Donald B. paying attention to soccer instead of Solar Bears today.
What?
He covers Solar Bears heavily. Sorry, I was...
So, ties. The frustration over ties come from high expectations. Yeah, absolutely. I think they've
They made a lot of promises.
They did make a lot of promises, but at the same time, they're over the playoff line right now. They're over the magical red line, so that's part of it. I think it's challenging to see, look, we're over the red line. The East has been shaken up. It's more competitive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You set high expectations. You get a lot of pushback when you don't meet them, but they want to make the playoffs this year. If the playoffs were tomorrow, they would make it. So they're not far off from where they're hoping to be. They're still in the fight. They're still in the thick of things. So I think that's what they're considering. They're wondering why everybody's freaking out at this stage, still so early. They're right up there with most of the other teams.
All right, I cannot discern from this handle what this person's opinion is. Fire Adrian Heath. How can Heath be happy at 5th place? He is 4 points from being dead last in the whole league. Heath is a joke.
Wow.
Wait. 4 points from last, but also 4 points from?
Dang, you took my line. Well, if you're going to say he's 4 points from being last, you have to also say in that same sentence that he's also 4 points from being first in the Eastern Conference. So, listen, anybody can take any numbers in any situation and use it to either support the team and defend it or put the team down and say that they're doing horribly. It goes both ways. So I just think that everybody should look at total pictures when formulating opinions so early on in the season. So 4 points from dead last, yes, that's not a lot. That's concerning. 4 points from top of the East, not so bad.
I will say I'm not going to completely diminish fans' discomfort, over 5 ties. I will say some of those ties, unjust, obviously officiating came into question a few times, but some of the time Orlando City had to rally just to pull out a point. I get that. They haven't looked the very best every single time out. And they get that too. They're working toward it. They're working to improve. So I understand a little bit of the criticism because it feels like some of the ties have been lucky at times. But, at the same time, your team is tracking well. And if it doesn't improve, there are, going to be consequences for this team. And if it does improve, then they've staked themselves to a solid foundation that will put them in a good position. So as of right now, they're trending in a direction that's positive for a playoff forecast, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, part of that, too, is consistency. With the injuries that they suffered every week, they haven't had a consistent lineup. This past game was the first game since Portland that all of their starters were even available for selection. So as of right now, there are no injuries other than Pedro. His back injury, he just had surgery. And so this would be the second week in a row that all of the starters and everyone's available for selection again. So now's more of a time where you can kind of see if it's going to improve. The lineup choices that are going to be made might start becoming more consistent. Like this week is only the second week, like I said. So it's good to pay attention this week and see what happens. Might be a little more telling than in weeks past.
All right. So from Orlando City, SC Brazil, you sort of covered it a little bit. Injury suspension report, please. So we know the injury report. You just mentioned Pedro, but we do have a suspension, and we're still waiting to hear more, I guess, on the red card situation from the last game.
Right. So the MLS disciplinary report comes out Wednesday or Thursday, typically. Yeah, I think it's been coming out on Thursday, so we'll know more then if there is additional fines or suspensions happening. I believe it was Seb Hines. They're concerned about that he could have a suspension coming for his yellow card. Okay,
so we have that so far. All right, so we're going to go on to the next question. This one's a little bit vague. Nick Baggio, is the honeymoon over between reporters and the club?
I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. I didn't know there was a honeymoon in the first place. But I'm guessing it has to do with Bianchi's column that came out after the game. That was a little harsh, to say the least, about not getting access to Kaká after the game. Is that what you think it would be?
I would think so. I think calling on Kaká to rise up and put all his energies behind the club and push for Orlando City to reach the playoffs, to light a spark back under this team, harkening back to the performance when he played his very first game this season against Portland. I think that's what Bianchi was urging, what he was looking for, what he said this team needs, how big that would be for the Orlando community. And so he's just asking Captain Kaká to come through and give them a dose of energy. And yeah, there were a few lines in there lamenting that Kaká was not available for post-game interviews. That's not a change for us. We always want access to people. So I don't know if it's a reversal of a honeymoon, because that's always what we want.
Right. I mean, when good things are happening, we write about the good things happening, and when they're not, we write about the things that aren't happening.
That's pretty much how it goes. All right, another question from Orlando City SC Brazil. Noticing by the 2 goals, this is Orlando Pride question, by the way. I thought Anderson was a playmaker. Why not move Kyle up from defensive midfield to center midfield and let her make the plays? So I had a chance to talk with Tom Sermani. I can weigh in a little on this one. He definitely is very much a matchup-oriented coach. He feels like it takes them days and days to work out their roster selection, and they pour over tape of their opponents extensively, trying to figure out what's going to be the best fit, what's going to work out the very best for them, and they're trying to tinker. So you're going to see some lineup changes. That lineup that you mentioned is a possibility. However, we talked last week, Leanne Sanderson, thoughts on her coming off the bench versus starting. We just saw her come off the bench again.
I kind of feel almost responsible for her starting and not doing well after I did that story. But, I mean, it's clear Tom Sermani knows his players well. And at this point in the season, it might not be the entire season that it's like this, but at this point in the season, Leanne Sanderson is a super sub.
All right. Do we have any last-minute questions to our
I don't know. Let's see. I didn't even check.
We're going to check in to see if anybody's got any last-minute winner questions before we start looking ahead to what's going to be another busy weekend for the teams. It's going to be very interesting to see. We're going to have another home game for the Orlando Pride. We're We're going to have a road game, a challenging road game for Orlando City. So, any other questions roll in?
Nope. I think just comments on other questions.
Comments on other questions. I can't imagine what that could be about. Perhaps some more on Adrian Heath. All right, so let's look ahead to this weekend. We've got, first of all, Orlando Pride, 7:30 Saturday against Western New York Flash. Thoughts on what you're hoping to see out of this particular game?
I am hoping to see more cohesion that we saw when they were here over the weekend. I thought they looked good. They looked motivated. I would like to see, even though the defense really came together in this last game and Ashland didn't have as much work to do, I would still like to see a little bit more from them, a little more connection between the defense and the midfield.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's an area where they can improve, and it'll be interesting to see if they can still spring Alex Morgan. I mean, I think the home fans would love to see her be able to get a better run of play, but that's going to take more work from the middle of the field, as you mentioned. That's where she's going to need some more support. I think it's coming together. I think they feel like it is, and she's been happy to orchestrate for her teammates. Eventually, that's going to pay off in her direction again. Yeah, she has some goals, but they've been hard fought.
Right.
They have not been of the sort that you would traditionally see. So as her team continues to grow and develop around her, that'll be interesting. I'm also curious to see how many fans show up. I get that the last game was Mother's Day. That was quite a drop from the opener, and I think we'll see. It's still among the best in NWSL.
Yeah, that's what people have to remember. Like this, there's a lot of lead up to this home opener. The home opener that drew almost 24,000 people. I mean, that's an incredible crowd for NWSL. So now people are looking at that number, and then they're looking at the 8,000 number, and they're thinking, oh, wow, like this is terrible. But there's still, the average attendance for an NWSL game at this point this season is about 5,600 people. So they're still far above that. They were contending with Mother's Day. Not only contending with Mother's Day, but at 5 p.m.
Yeah, the time actually probably was the greatest hindrance, but I'm still telling you, Orlando, you asked for soccer. This is good soccer. I expect to see you there. All right, next up, Orlando City, playing at Sporting Kansas City. Both teams very hungry for a win. I believe, 5 games for Orlando City since their last win? 6 games for Sporting Kansas City. So what are you looking forward to this one?
Not a tie. I want to see, if one of these teams wins, and this is not a draw, it's going to be a huge momentum booster for whichever one pulls out the win. Because after a 5-game winless streak for Orlando City, a 6-game winless streak for Sporting Kansas City, snapping those streaks will really, I feel, propel them into the right direction where they're both hoping to go.
Very good. All right, so we're ready to close out our show. I have one more thing to announce. I don't think readers notice this very much. I don't think anyone notices very much, but Alicia DelGallo officially was our interim soccer reporter, and I'm pleased to announce that we have formally extended her a job offer. Alicia, have you accepted our job to be our new soccer writer?
Yeah, okay, I accept.
Awesome. So we're very excited that we have a new MLS and WSL, or all things soccer in the City Beautiful beat reporter. She's done an outstanding job. There's some guy who used to cover this team before. He's gone now, and we're thrilled that she has stepped in and done this job. So keep sending her questions.
Yes. I appreciate the support, and I appreciate all the confidence that everyone has given me so far. It was not easy to jump in the day before the season started to get going, but I'm looking forward to the rest of the season, and things will just get better from here, I promise. Keep sending your photos and questions.
And check out her Snapchat from Kansas City. We'll look for some Snap updates. We'll see what she can do on the road. And keep sending us questions. We're really excited to hear back from readers. Happy to answer your questions, even if they're all about Adrian Heath. We'll stay here and answer them for you. With Alicia DelGallo, our official MLS and WSL soccer beat reporter, I'm Iliana Limon-Romero. Thanks for joining us.